Right, we're going to do cuttings. Same as with all the other tasks that you have to do, it's about working neatly and tidily. You'll have a red bucket for all your weeds and leftover bits and pieces, so have that down on the floor. You're going to be working from left to right again. So the plants that you're going to be taking cuttings from will be on your left. Set up your workbench so that you can then finish on your right hand side. It's important with cuttings that you do all the setup, as much prep as possible before you start taking cuttings from the plant itself. As soon as you take a cutting from a plant, the plant starts to die, so you want it to be as short a time as possible from cutting to getting it into a container. We've got everything set up within arm's reach. First thing you need to do with cuttings, they're very susceptible to disease, so you want to make sure that the pot that you're using is cleaned out. So just over your red bucket with your brush, get rid of all the bits and pieces, cobwebs that have built up. Then going to need to get your growing media. For cuttings, you're using 50% perlite and 50% coir. If you use 2 scoops of each. It is a good idea if you're doing the mix to put your perlite down first, because it's very dusty, so if you put the coir on top, it just contains some of that dust from flying about. You don't want to, when you're doing cuttings, have too much wetness actually in the pot, so what you start off with moistening the growing media and give that a mix up. So don't speed through the mixing it up part, because it is very important that the perlite is distributed as much as possible amongst the coir. So you fill up your pot. You see the pot has got a lip round the edge, that's where you want your growing media to settle to. So it's like doing the seeds sowing, you overfill the pot slightly, because once the soil settles, it'll get below that level. So, and just tap it to get a nice level surface. You then move the extra growing media out your way. You don't need that just now. Grab a bag. This is what you're going to put your collected materials into. And you just put a few sprays of water into the bag, just to keep the cuttings as moist as possible. And we'll go to our plant. The material that you're looking for to take cuttings from, you want it to be healthy. So you'll see on these plants there's some leaves that are starting to go a bit yellow, the plant's got a bit dry. You want to avoid anything that looks like that, that's maybe not as healthy as the rest. And you also don't want stems that have got flowers on them if possible. Sometimes that can't be avoided. So you just remove a length and pop it into your bag. Fold the bag over and then go back to your plant and find another length of material to take off. For the exam, you're going to be asked to take 5 cuttings, and you've only got 15 minutes to do that in. It's not a lot of time. So it is about working quickly, but also carefully. Take take it back to your board, and you're now going to prepare the material that you've made to get into the pot. So take one out at a time. You see the length of the cutting that I've taken. You're going to take possibly about 5 to 6 centimetres off that. You don't need a long piece of stem to take a cutting from. If you get your knife, first of all, what we're going to do is remove extra leaves. The only leaves you want left on the cutting are the ones at the very top. So you might get away with keeping these ones and these ones at the top, but we'll remove everything from below. So this one will be removed and everything else below. You're then going to make a final cut somewhere on the stem just below a node. So notice where the leaves, you've just cut off the leaves or grown out of the stem. So I think I'll cut just here. So as close to the node as possible, and it's a straight cut across. Then do a quick dip in some water. A dip in some hormone rooting powder. You need the tiniest amounts. As soon as you've dipped, just shake off the extra, and then you're going to get your cutting into the growing medium. You're aiming to plant, take this extra bit off, you're aiming to plant the stem right up until to the base of the leaves, so everything else is going to be under the soil. And just firm it in. And then you do the same with the other 4. We'll just quickly go through them. It is also important that all the cuttings you get are the same length, the same final length, so I think I'm going to cut just below this node. So you're not going to get them exactly the same length, but just as close as possible. this one. Yeah, all the cuttings in the pot, ta-da! So you've planted round the outside edges. So again, writing the label, point a bit to your right hand. This plant is Nepeta Six Hills Giant, so it's one that we know. The date at the top. And again on the back, because it's the exam, you write your name. And stick that in the edge of the pot, obviously not touching any of your cuttings. Last thing you do is find a fresh bag, and this is where your cuttings are going to stay for at least a couple of weeks. Sorry. So you're going to spray in, so you want to get some moisture into the bag so that the top has got some moisture in there. Carefully put the bag over the top and use an elastic band. Now, storing your cuttings, you want it to be an environment where the top half in the bag where your cuttings are is cool and moist. You want it to be cool because you don't want to encourage any leaves to grow or any flowers to grow. You want the bottom bit to be warm because you are trying to encourage the roots to grow. So it's about having the moisture but not having it too wet. And that's it. That's taking cuttings. And the last thing you do, same as with everything else, is clean up your bench. So all your cut leaves and stems into your bin. Your excess growing media also goes into your bin. Then you turn all the tools that you found when you came to this workbench back in its original location. And it's ready for the next person to come along. And that's us.